You're watching Bloomberg Quint, and I'm Ira Dugal, coming to you on a day when the Deputy Governor of the Reserve Bank of India, Acharya, has officially announced that he has put in his papers. News emerged this morning through various media reports suggesting that he had actually stepped down or put in his papers a few weeks back. That was later confirmed by the central bank in a short statement. I'll read out that statement before we try and get views on this development. The central bank in its statement said that a few weeks ago, Dr. Acharya submitted a letter to the Reserve Bank of India informing that due to unavoidable personal circumstances, he is unable to continue his term as Deputy Governor of the Reserve Bank of India. Consequential action arising from his letter is under consideration of the competent authority. That was a brief statement coming in from the Reserve Bank of India. Not entirely unanticipated that Acharya would step down. If you recall, last year there was a lot of chatter about the fact that both Urjit Patel and Viral Acharya will exit the central bank. Urjit Patel submitted his resignation in December. Viral Acharya now submitting his resignation in June, set to exit at the end of July. So in some ways, we've had two quick exits from the central bank and, well, perhaps some reason to be unnerved on account of that. Let me get voices in on this. Rohit Garg, Director of Asia Forex and Rate Strategy at Bank of America Merrill Lynch, joining on the phone line. Rohit, many thanks for taking our call. I do want to know how foreign investors are seeing, firstly, Acharya's exit, but in the context of the fact that we've already seen a governor resign not so many months ago.
Yes, hi, thanks for having me. So I think there are two things to really focus over here. First thing is we have in the past had even higher profile resignations, like Dr. Rajan as well as Dr. Patel. But if you look at the impact on the FX market or even on the bond markets, they have been very much short-lived. Keeping that in context, I do think that even this most recent resignation should also have a very, very limited impact on the market. To me, right now, the way markets are actually behaving, they're entirely focused on what's going to be happening in the G20 summit, in the meeting between U.S. and China, and of course, what happens to U.S.-Iran trade tensions. I guess those are the two big factors that foreign investors are watching.
Rohit, also, as someone pointed out to me this morning, perhaps, global investors are a little bit numbed by this talk of central bank independence because, India is no longer an outlier. You have the largest developed economy, the U.S. central bank facing pressure from political quarters as well. So perhaps in that context, people will take developments in India a little bit better than they would have otherwise?
So, regardless of whether there is central bank independence or not, I think what entirely markets focusing on is that when you are where economic growth is actually slowing down, and that's pretty much a global phenomenon that we are actually seeing. And of course, inflation is also slowing down. There are no signs of any inflationary activities at all. Does a central bank dependence or independence really all that matter as much? To me, the path right now is quite clear for anyone out there, whether it's a hawk or a dove, that the policy needs to be eased, and regardless of how things are.
Rohit, a couple of questions on some of the specific issues that Dr. Acharya has raised. We were hoping we would get some word on the economic capital framework and the findings or the recommendations of the committee, but it looks like that meeting has once again been deferred. Will that be material to the markets? And if the decision goes contrary to what some of these purists have been arguing, that the central bank needs to hold on to a strong amount of reserves, would the market respond?
As of now, I do not see much of a market response. And again, simply because, the entire focus is really on the economy right now. So in that sense, if the entire focus is on the economy, it doesn't really matter whether, there is any sort of a dissent in terms of the economic capital framework or not. Market's going to completely ignore all those things.
And the fiscal risk that Dr. Acharya had quite eloquently highlighted in the last MPC statement, has that taken hold at all in the markets, or once again, not so much?
Again, not so much. But of course, what the resignation does actually imply is that because Dr. Acharya has been one of the hawks in the MPC, his I would say absence from the MPC would actually mean that the deck is absolutely cleared for the MPC to continue on the easing front and even accelerate as far as the easing is concerned.
All right, Rohit, we'll leave it at that. Thanks so much for joining us. So, markets No reaction really, neither on the currency side nor on the bond side to this resignation. But nevertheless, that does not take away the importance of it. Let me get a bigger picture view on this. Dr. Pranob Sen, former chief statistician of the country, veteran watcher of the Indian economy, is joining us. Dr. Sen, how do you see what has developed today with Dr. Acharya exiting about 6 odd months after Dr. Patel did? It does send out, or at least it leaves the field open for questions as to what's going on that's not allowing some of these academics to stay on at the central bank.
Well, I think too much is being made out of it. Dr. Acharya expressed his intent of leaving several months ago. So this is nothing new. It's not that something has happened in the immediate past that has precipitated a resignation. So let's not read too much into it. The question, of course, is why did he express interest in leaving? And by and large, I think the response probably is that a lot of people who have been holding academic positions abroad probably find that, going back to the academics is probably more rewarding than what they're doing out here. So there may be a sense of frustration. But as far as what happens to the economy, my suspicion is nothing much is going to happen at all.
Dr. Sen, just hold the line. I'm going to welcome in S. Narayan as well, again, veteran of the Indian economy, former finance secretary. Thanks, Dr. Narayan, for joining us. Again, I'm just going to ask you basically what you would read into these two quick resignations, if anything, from Urjit Patel and then Viral Acharya.
Actually, I kind of agree with Dr. Sen that too much is trying to be made out of this resignation. And I don't think the path of, let's say, monetary policy is going to be significantly changed by Mr. Acharya going away. So I do, let me put it this way, I do think that he's going back to academics. A number of people earlier have gone back to academics. Probably he feel, and this is the month of July, August, if he goes back to academics, he can start a full session from October, the fall session, which is starting. So I don't think that we need to take this, try to examine this through a magnifying glass. I think, but the only thing is that he has been saying even earlier that he wants to leave.
Okay. Dr. Sen, though, from the point of continuity of the central bank, do you still think that it makes no difference? I mean, I know we have an MPC, so in some ways that continuity issue is a little bit less, pronounced now than it was in the previous regime when all decisions were taken by the RBI governor. But still, you want to see that there is a continuity of policies, both on the economy but also on the banking front. We have, for instance, seen a quick turnaround in many banking regulation policies that had been announced by Urjit Patel, by Governor Das.
In any policy system, there has to be scope for review. And I think, there was, an overreaction earlier. I think a certain moderation has taken place. That's all fine. But as far as continuity is concerned, you're absolutely right. I mean, it's not a very pleasant situation to have an RBI without an economist there. It's a very, very uncomfortable situation. And if the resignation by Dr. Acharya had been several months back, I just wonder what the government was doing, not having somebody standing by to replace him.
Dr. Narayan, my question to you is similar, and I do reiterate that we've seen at least 3 major banking policies reversed since Urjit Patel's exit. I know that the impact of Dr. Acharya's exit may be less pronounced because there is an MPC in place, but still, he's been raising issues around fiscal, sort of prudence, which have not found their sort of space as they should have in the Monetary Policy Committee statements.
Yeah, but you must also recognize that in the last 4 or 5 months, the economy is slowing down, and the Reserve Bank, the Governor Reserve Bank has come out with saying that he's concerned about growth. So a change in direction from a kind of a hard monetary stance to a more elusive monetary stance is even normally to be expected even if there had been no change in the helm of affairs. But this, I mean, we must recognize that there is a slowdown. I mean, you can see any numbers. There is a slowing down of the economy. So I do agree that having an economist on the Reserve Bank is extremely important. But that the change of stance has caused this, or I would hesitate to go as far as to say that.
Okay. I'm going to ask another question to both of you, and slightly politically incorrect question, so I will try and word it as carefully as possible. Dr. Sen, there seems to be this impression that people who have spent a large part of their career and then they come down to an institution, perhaps like the Reserve Bank of India or other policy-making institutions, they find a bit of a disconnect in being able to function within the system, yet hold on to their intellectually their intellectual views. Do you see that there is a problem? Is it only insiders who manage to survive the system, so to speak?
No, that's not true at all. I mean, having spent a long time in government, in an advisory and a policy-making capacity, the fact of the matter is that in government systems, you're allowed a huge amount of leeway in expressing yourself. However, if you have an ego problem in that if your advice is not followed and a collective decision is taken which is otherwise, and if you take that personally, that is a reflection on the individual. It is not a reflection on the institution.
Dr. Narayan, similar question to you. Has the room for dissent reduced?
Government is a system, and it's like a teamwork. Different parts of the government have to work smoothly and to move together smoothly. So, I mean, just to say that there is one very big tall tree and that tall tree will therefore dwarf all other trees, it doesn't really work in government. You have to work as a team in consonance with the requirements of the day, with certainly having an eye on the politics of the day. I think all my years of government, just to say that one person will make an enormous difference, I would hesitate to draw back and say that this is true.
I'll close, with to seek a view from you, both of you, on a comment made by Dr. Y.V. Reddy in the Business Standard today, where he puts it very succinctly. He said the art of central banking lies in convincing the people that the RBI is independent while assuring the government that its priorities are in sync with the government's own priorities. That's a good way of putting it, Dr. Narayan, right? I mean, at the end of the day, the RBI is a creature of the government, but so far history has suggested that within the large boundaries set for the RBI has been allowed to act independently. Do you believe that construct holds?
Absolutely, absolutely. Because if you just look at the situation now, if you do recognize that growth is slowing and that an accommodative monetary policy is necessary, and the RBI is moving towards an accommodative policy, and simultaneously are coming up with a budget where the expectations are that it will be growth-oriented, you see cohesion. You see absolute cohesion. So I don't know why this particular incident is being made so much of.
Dr. Sen, do you also appreciate the cohesion that seems to have emerged in the last few months, or do you also maintain a degree of caution that cohesion shouldn't go too far?
No, I mean, let's be very clear. I don't think anybody who has ever been really looking at macroeconomic policy believes that there can be complete separation between monetary and fiscal policy, number one. Number two, if the independence of RBI is interpreted to mean that RBI should consistently go against the fiscal intent, then there's something wrong in the way you look at the economy. The point is there are points of time where they may need to move in different directions, but those have to be calibrated. So to talk about independence as RBI doing whatever it feels like would essentially mean that RBI then becomes an entirely reactive organization rather than be either proactive or even better working in consonance with the government of the day.
All right, that's a good note to end on. Two veterans of the Indian economic system, Dr. S. Narayan and Dr. Pranob Sen, talking about the realities of the situation really, and warning us not to read too much into one resignation or the other coming in from the Reserve Bank of India. Nevertheless, while it is news, and for what it's worth, we will be seeing a new deputy governor. We are not going in the direction of speculating who that new deputy governor will be, but presumably that announcement would come soon. Acharya, who was handling the monetary policy department, will be exiting at the end of July, so we will have a new DG for monetary policy. Thanks for watching Bloomberg Quint on that quick update on the news of the morning. Lots more coming up. Stay tuned.